Let's continue writing some additional tests around my lottery contract. And I think that the next test should make sure that a user has to send in the appropriate amount of ether in order to enter into the contract. So if you send less than 0.01, so let's look at the Solidity contract here. If you send less than 0.01 ether, we want to ensure that we do not allow a person to enter into the contract. This test is going to be a little bit more tricky to write because essentially we want to make sure that something goes wrong, and that's not the easiest thing to actually put together. So let's give it a shot at the bottom of my test file here. Okay. And so at the bottom of my test file, but still inside the describe block, I'm going to add another it statement. And this one will say that it requires a minimum amount of ether. All right, so let's see. And of course, always starts with the string as the first argument and arrow function as a second argument. And I'm going to say requires a minimum amount of ether. Okay, and let's see, requires a minimum of ether. And it's going to be async. All right, so again, I'm going to try to enter in the contract, but I will add dramatically less ether. So I will say await lottery methods, enter send, and that gets done inside the it block, like so. Await lottery methods, enter send. Let's see what else is missing here. Okay, so I'm still going to say from accounts, like so. So in here, from accounts, index of 0, and the value of ether I send in is going to be different. So this time I'll just try sending in like 200 way. So like this, value 200. Let's save this. So the goal here is by entering in the wrong amount of ether, something should go wrong when we're using the async await syntax. And I can handle the errors by using the try-catch statement. So I'm going to use try-catch, which is part of basic JavaScript, to ensure that some error occurs here. And I'm going to first start off by wrapping the await inside of a try. And I'll do that like so. So I'll do try. Maybe I could go. There we go. And I'm gonna wrap this inside of there, like so. Let's see what that looks like so far. All right, so try. I think I can move these. No, that's fine. I'll leave that like that. And so after which I have the catch here. I don't need that E. And what I'm going to catch here is the error object. So instead of that E, I'm just going to put ERR. So I don't really need this. Okay. All right, so a quick refresher on try-catch. When we use these, the JavaScript interpreter will attempt to run the code inside of the curly braces here, okay? Inside of the try statement. If this code is executed without error, then everything continues along. But if something goes wrong with this line of code here, this block of code, what we do is that the catch statement will be triggered. And so we can use try-catch statements to automatically catch errors that are thrown by asynchronous function calls like the one I have here. So again, in this case, I want to ensure that the call ends up in the catch. And I want to see an error here. So inside the catch part, I'm going to add on an assertion to ensure that I get to this point, like so. So I'll do assert .ok, and I'll say error. The OK method just checks to see and ensure that assert has some value passed into this function. So even though this is an error object, it is a value, so I can ensure that there is an error present. Now, to be triple sure, like 100% sure that this thing fails, I'm also going to add a failing assertion immediately after the await. So here I'll do assert false. And I actually made a mistake here. I don't need this OK method here. Yeah, so using assert, just assert, is going to check for truthiness, whereas the OK method checks for its existence. And I just want to check for truthiness. So why am I using assert false up here? Well, if the asynchronous function call is executed, then an error is not thrown. Execution will go down to the next line of code where I will run assert false, which is always going to fail my test no matter what. So if for some reason this statement does not throw an error, this line of code will, and then our test will fail. However, if assert false does throw an error, that will end up in the catch statement, where I assert that yes, something went wrong with assert error. All right, so let's give this a shot. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then head over to my terminal, clean this up a bit, and then I'll do npm run test. And I want to mention that this try-catch is a pattern that I'm going to use quite a bit whenever I want to somehow catch errors or do some error handling around any function calls that I make to a given contract. Also, I'm only using try-catch here because I'm using the async await syntax, and we capture errors with async await by using the try-catch. So if I were using traditional promises, then I would use catch statements instead. Okay, so as you saw when I was speaking, everything is working, everything is passing. The test is passing because I went to the catch statement. Okay, I ended up here in the catch statement where I asserted that an error was present, and I clearly did not run this line of code here. So if assert false had run, it would have failed. Okay, so now I'm now asserting or testing to ensure that someone has to send along an appropriate amount of ether to actually enter into the lottery. Okay, so let's continue in the next video where I will work on my next test.